Hello, Michael. Thank you for coming.
Hi,
How are
Nergish.
you?
All very well today, thank you.
Good stuff. And thank you for taking the time out to speak to me today. So, Michael, I wanted to firstly introduce you to the audience. Not that anyone in hairdressing at all doesn't know who you are, but to me, you're a salon owner, an extraordinary salon owner, and you run a fine business you're still in Beaumont Street, aren't you?
Yes, in Marylebone.
Marylebone.
Central London.
How wonderful. And I'd have to say the thing that you're innovative, and I recall a long time ago you were ahead of the pack by a mile when it came to products that had things like silicone in them, and it had harsher chemicals. And I've known you a while, and I think even at that time you were concerned about the quality of the product. And I mean, today you've just said to me that it's grown from a capsule range to now a 60 SKU range. I mean, that's phenomenal. I'd love for you to, introduce yourself. I mean, I would call you an innovator, but how would you refer to yourself? And then I'd love to talk to you about so much of what you're doing.
Michael Van Clarke, we have our salon in Marylebone, and this is my 44th year in the industry. So I started in the rock and roll era of the 1970s, not long after Warren Beatty launched his film Shampoo, and things things had a certain excitement in those days, but let's say they weren't quite as professional as they are now. And I think we've certainly smartened up the business side of hairdressing. So yeah, we have our salon in Marylebone. It's very much our home. We actually live in the same building. We have a beautiful 5-story Regency building. And but we also operate globally with our products and with our teaching as well. We have our products now in the UK, as far away as Australia. We've just launched an American website. So that's something which we're building at quite a scale. But as I say, the salon is home for me, and how a salon operates is so important, because it has to feel like our home, in that we're welcoming our clients every day. Hospitality is really a huge part of what we do, and the clientele is always first and center to how we operate, and that's something that we teach as well.
Superb. So if I could go to the first thing that I could recall, was that you had introduced something called the diamond cut. So can we speak a little bit about that, please?
Yes, I missed out on the general trend in hairdressing, which was to follow the Sassoon Method. In the 1960s, Sassoon broke away from the industry to really industrialize the way of cutting hair with the wet haircut, because it was perfect for the look that he was promoting, which was the bob. It was very geometric. They took no prisoners with hair types and textures. You basically cut hair wet, and then you blow dried it before it had a chance to do anything crazy or natural. And it worked very well. It allowed him to expand very quickly with quicker training methods and very quick execution of clients. I think at the time, bookings were half an hour.
When I joined, and that's where I first started. So yes, they were half an hour.
And you had to be, the client was in and out of that seat in half an hour. It didn't allow for too much personalization, let's say, but that's not what people wanted either.
No.
I started through the Leonard heritage, and Leonard was someone that had actually worked with Sassoon for a few years. Together, worked from similar backgrounds, and Leonard went to the more premium end, let's say, and he had this fabulous building in Mayfair off Grosvenor Square, and looked after the elites, let's say, from royalty, acting, and still to this day, most of the premium salons, if not all of the premium salons in London that are at the very top of the charging structure, came through the Leonard chain, through the Leonard lineage, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
And I came that way as well with my brother Nicky, via John Frieda, who was with, and we always cut hair dry. It wasn't let's say, as precise as what I've developed now,
right, with
dry cut, because I feel that I've brought the best of what Sassoon was trying to do and the best of what Leonard was trying to do in a very precise way of cutting hair in a three-dimensional form. Much as a sculptor would have a way of breaking into a block of stone, hair is a material that is three-dimensional. You can pretend it's two-dimensional by making it wet and pulling it tight, but it is actually in its natural state three-dimensional.
Yes.
So it really needs a method to access that shape so that you can cut anything that you have your eye in your mind's eye. It's a method to allow the stylist the full range of working, very precise in a way that works for the clients as well, in that they get the very best that suits them. It lasts much longer and also is very easy for them to manage.
Right.
That's the dry cut.
When I've observed you cutting hair, there are many times that I trained under Andre and Norman in Hong Kong, and Andre was a through and through Sassoonite, whereas Norman had been through other training in Scotland and in the South, and then he came on to Hong Kong. And so I could see the difference in both of them. So when you cut hair, you almost cut hair like both my bosses, my original bosses. So I can actually see that that approach, because I had two people working aside me and training me. One is absolutely the Sassoon way, and one that would always sort of slightly fight it and say, we used to tell people that the bob cuts here, and if it was here, we weren't allowed to cut it. I remember how absolutely, and I've also been pulled over when I've done a haircut in the salon, where someone has actually said to me, I'll give you a hint, there's a little bit of weight on the right-hand side of that bob, and if you don't bring your customer back, I won't let her leave.
Right.
So fix it. So when you say there was no flexibility, there was no flexibility and no errors.
And that was the success of the day. They're very rigid in how they applied the styles and how people worked them. And I remember in the 1980s, when Sassoon was still, it was on the wane. He'd left years before, but they were still a very strong force.
Of course.
Very strong force. And they used to laugh at us at John Frieda because we used round brushes.
Right. Yes.
Because they were taught that only what we tell you is right. Everyone else is rubbish. And
Denman brush or nothing.
and of course, now, every hairdresser is expected to know how to use a round brush.
And very well.
I remember being flown to America once to do a princess's hair for a state visit because she had very curly hair. And it was during that time in the 80s when no hairdressers knew how to smooth hair straight if it was very, very curly. Sassoon at the time didn't really want to do people with curly hair. They'd send them to Molten Brown.
Did they? Gosh, maybe that was what we had to learn. Listen,
in the 70s, they didn't want to do very curly hair.
Mine would have been, I'm just about a few years behind. I would have been in the 80s when I started there. And but we were taught actually cutting Afro hair as well in Hong Kong.
They had to move with the times to a degree, but from where they started, breaking them away from those bob styles, it it was hard. You know, they wanted to hold on to that purity.
Got it.
And so, you know, they were seen as the ones that was very pure. And if you had wavy hair and wanted something a bit hippie-ish, go to Molten Brown.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I thought it was strict when I arrived there. And I know the round brush that my mother bought me to go in with ended up literally across into the sea. And he went, well, you won't be needing that. That was it. Wow. So the diamond cut I have now understood. Does it require a particular pair of scissors? Does it require any particular? No. It's just the way.
Skill and a lot of perspective from the stylist. It's not as quick to teach a stylist to work in such an open field.
Got it.
There are far more variables that they have to learn, but when they do learn, nothing phases them because they can do anything.
Makes
and
sense.
That's the beauty of it.
How wonderful. Well, I'm glad I got the first-hand account of that. Right, so I'm going to refer to my notes now and say that the second thing I wanted to talk about, which was your product range. I remember that being one of the first times you'd brought it up. We met we met officially. I knew about you beforehand, but we met officially when I was training your team at some stage. But at the time, you were so clear about, you know, there can be something better. There can I find you're the type of person that will always be looking for a better way to do something.
Yeah, never satisfied.
Correct. And so, and so, of course, I think that attitude makes innovators. I definitely think that results in innovation, and you've just gone on to prove that you start with a capsule line and then you can expand it because you've stuck to your guns, and then you've delivered, and then you can deliver more. So tell us about your range. I guess fundamentally, where did that spark start? Firstly, saying, here's a whole bunch of ranges, none of them are good enough, I'm going to start something better. Where does that start?
Well, it started when we first opened our own salon. And of course, all the manufacturers wanted us to sign up to their line and to sort of own our retail as such. And we never wanted to do that. You know, we had very close relationships with all of the product companies and the big manufacturers, but we would only take the products that we wanted. And we would have, you know, a couple from here and a couple from there. You know, we always had that sense that we want to use the best of breed of whatever product it is, and we're not selling our soul to anybody. But it still seemed that in those early days, this is now in the 80s still, so many of the products were synthetic, cosmetic, that they'd leave the hair hard or sticky or brittle. And, you know, we wanted products that would make the hair feel like more beautiful, better hair, but still natural.
Got it.
And my partner at the time had some hair loss issues, and we sought out a trichologist in Mayfair who developed a range for us, which was very kind of him because he only normally made things for other trichologists. And that was the first core range that we had, that even though we only prescribed it to clients in plain white bottles with their name on, it still outsold everything else that we'd sell from the big companies. So we had that, and it was in probably about 15 years ago that after clients constantly saying, why don't you sell this outside? Why don't you sell this outside? We sort of put our efforts behind putting a brand around this and preparing to launch to the public. But I wanted to test that what we thought was so good actually was so good compared to what was on the market. So we went through a couple of years of testing. We bought thousands and thousands of pounds worth of products in to test things against, and realized that our key product was still very, very good and better than what we could find in the market for specific use. But also what we discovered is that we'd sort of missed out on the silicone revolution. because we'd sort of been on our own, in our own little way for 10, 15 years. And by that, most products were adding silicone to them because silicone would give a cosmetic sheen to the hair, help the moisture stay back so hair lasted longer. But what we realized is that too much silicone makes the hair brittle.
Yes.
It dries the hair out. And it doesn't give you that effect on the day. On the day, you think it's solved all your problems, you know, less frizz, shiny hair. But slowly, it actually destroys the health of the hair.
Yes, it erodes it, I think, yeah.
And then coming through into the sort of modern times, moving out of that period in the 90s where, I don't know if you remember when GHDs finally came out with an effective set of flat irons.
Yes.
Fashion was to have very straight, very flat hair.
Yes.
Hide a multitude of sins. And of course, silicone for that seemed to help because it does straighten the hair. It kills movement in the hair.
Correct.
Moving into an era now where people want to have some movement in the hair, a lot of them don't realize that the siliconized products are making their life difficult because the hair doesn't last as well, the curl doesn't last as well.
Got it.
But it's also drying their hair out too quickly.
Yeah.
So creating things without silicone was an early thing that we wanted to do, and we're not alone now. You know, there are many other manufacturers realizing that silicone needs to come out of the product to get it healthier and more clean. But there are other ingredients as well which we like to move on from. The European Union have been very good in banning about 1,300 ingredients in cosmetics. The Americans have banned about 11. So I do find it funny to see products from America that have things in that are so nasty. I can't believe that they can get away with it. But it's never ending. We're always looking to make our products cleaner and more natural, and that carries on now. And same with our packaging. We're moving packaging from plastic to aluminium. You know, it takes time.
Yes.
Reducing the amount of plastic we're using, but essentially having products which we know perform better than what clients can buy elsewhere, because that also breeds loyalty. It breeds loyalty from the client and breeds loyalty from the stylist, and confidence too, in that they know they're recommending the best.
Well, that's trust, basically. And I think I harp on enough about it to not go on too much about it. But you're on our advisory board of the PHAB Service Stars, and we talk about just think long-term about your business. You know, don't think about a quick fix. It's about establishing trust. If you keep your core clientele, then all you've got to think about is ways of attracting new, younger generations into your business. That's much easier if you keep that core stable. Yes. And so, you know, this ties in so beautifully with what you are doing and saying, which is, I guess, why we see fairly similarly when it comes to standards in the industry. So then I'd like to ask the obvious question, why not sell to other hairdressers who think like that, who basically, and you know, it was the thought going through my head that why does he keep that in his salon? Exclusivity, I understand. Along comes COVID. Then you've got to set up a site that's really efficient. And then I thought, you do have the tools already in place now. And I think one of the comments that you put on your website when I was going through it to see the product line, and this is before your latest products have arrived. And I can say that one of the comments you made is we can no longer ship to Europe. And I think you said that sentence somewhere. And I thought maybe that's sort of Brexit related, or maybe he's made a decision to keep it in the UK. Can you tell us about that, what that was?
No, that was purely Brexit related.
Right. Because the paperwork was ridiculous.
Yeah, what was happening in Europe is that customers were receiving products, and then you know, some of them almost being held at gunpoint to pay admin fees before the courier would hand it over. Correct. And you know, that doesn't exactly enhance our customer experience. And no matter what we did, we couldn't seem to get round the variability of this in different countries. Correct. And so, like many companies, we put a pause on Europe. Not permanently. We're actually opening a logistics warehouse in the Netherlands to deal with Europe separately. Right. So it's not permanent, should be open in the next few months. But it's interesting you talk about trust, because trust is at the core of a professional relationship. Exactly. And it's something that it amuses me that a lot of people in business don't understand that, you know, especially in a professional relationship, it's not a transaction. It is a long-term relationship. And for us, a client that we get that's a new client should be a client for life. Yes. And if they're not, then it's something that we're doing wrong.
There's something broken there. Absolutely, because if they're not coming back, something didn't go their way.
Right, that's right. We have very high numbers when it comes to average client lifetime value. I think ours are about 7 years on average, our clients stay, which including new clients is very high. But we also have, at last count, which was about 4 years ago, we had 100 clients that would now be over 40 years with us. COVID may have reduced those numbers slightly, unfortunately, but it's a very loyal client base, and that's something that's very important to us in our business. Coming back to the products, you know, we have had lots of requests from salons, both here and in America, for the products over the years while we've been out in the public domain. Up until now, we've said no, not because we're necessarily too precious about our products, but more that we wanted to know that we could service them properly. And that hasn't been the case up to now. So the last 3 years, we've been setting up our D2C operation with warehouses in the UK, now a new warehouse in America, a much bigger team that are helping with the products. And now finally, we feel that we can actually say yes to salons, and we have already said yes to a couple, which is going very well. And I think where we are more unique is that what I want to do is offer our training alongside those salons that partner with us to become stockists. You know, we have a wealth of training that we've delivered to the industry over the years, both on a practical level, where with our precision blow drying, our diamond dry cut, our hair up, wedding and events type of hair, but then also our training skills for business for managers, owners, with our salon business mastery. Right. And it's something that I would love to offer to those salons that partner with us, because it's something that we know we do very well, and we can help salons to up their game as well, especially after COVID, when things are so difficult. You know, in our time, we've learned a lot from making mistakes as well. We've learned a lot about what does work, what doesn't work, yes. What are the numbers that you should be focusing on, you know, how to build that client loyalty and to keep clients for life, but also how to keep the team engaged as well and moving forward all the time. I think we have 4 team members now hitting 30 years with us. Quite a number over 10 years. And as you said before, there's no point constantly searching out new clients if your old ones are leaving at the same rate. You know,
fix that first.
It's bad to do business like that.
Absolutely. So, so then that I would have to say that I was going to ask what's going to make your product line different, but you've actually narrowed it down to whoever partners up with you has a wealth of experience to learn from. And you're actually a practical place. I mean, I presume, don't you also have a deli attached to you in your building?
We have a very successful deli, and we know from experience when we've offered training to salons, they love to be able to come into a West End salon, a salon that's, you know, a large salon that's been operating successfully for 34 years, and we open everything up for them. You know, we're happy for them to see everything we do, all of our systems, because we've got nothing to hide, and actually it helps us to share that too. So in terms of our training, I know we have a lot to offer, but it's not, you know, that's an add-on. The products themselves are best of breed, and they are what we want to use in the salon. And we will not launch any product unless the whole team agrees that it's actually best of breed, because you know what hairdressers are like. If they know there's something else out there better, they'll stuff it in their kit bag. Yeah. And that's not what we want. We're doing, you know, shows and events. We've got the salon work as well. We want our team to know that whatever they're using, it's the best of breed.
Well, what can I say? I mean, that's comprehensive. And I was going to ask you what's new for 2022, but 22, but I think this is it.
It is. I mean, our focus now is the professional market and also the USA.
Oh, well done. Oh, I mean, what can I say? And I think in the salon, it's probably just developing the team one at a time. I mean, it makes sense that they're going to be now functioning as trainers as well. If your team
very much so, and some of them have that experience. They've done things directly for salons and through Weller for salons, but we have a strong young team up and coming who look after our academy as well, and you know, they're very keen to go out and help a broader audience as well.
Well, you're going to, all I know is you're going to be busy in 20, busier than you've been.
We are.
And so, well, yes, I mean, I'd have to say that you were very supportive of our efforts when we first set up the PHAB standard, and we launched, you know, at the Dorchester. You were there for us the whole time, and you know, both you and your brother were there when we went our first outing as advisory board. We went out we celebrated after the Vidal Sassoon movie, and I managed to speak to him for about the fourth time in my life. And by the way, he's never remembered me.
Oh.
I had to remind him each time that he'd met me at the Hong Kong Star. And I got to tell, of course, he was my hero. So I do have to say that when I mentioned to him, I got 3 minutes of his undivided attention that day. And I explained to him what I was doing is because I wasn't as good as him at hairdressing. I decided to go down and improve business and hair and business and beauty. And so he smiled, and I felt he gave us, all of us that day. There's a picture of all of us out there together with him. And yeah, I felt I'd got my blessing from my mentor, I guess, to take this forward. Yes. And so I can only thank you for, you know, trusting me and, you know, I guess always supporting and being behind us, Michael. It means so much to us. So thank you so much.
What you're doing is very important, Nergish. I think the industry really needs something that helps people to improve their standards.
I hope, and I know what I'm doing is true to the industry. I know that I don't want any help financially, because although it's crippling for me to do it, I know that when we get a standard that is uniform, much like I said, people trust. I need that trust from people to say, if I've said someone in Berwick-upon-Tweed in this small 4-man salon is delivering outstanding service, I want people to trust that star is saying that about them.
Yes. And
you know, Michael, I have to say that we are slowly getting that sort of backing now. And I think people will come around. It'll take its time, but I'm not in any hurry. I want quality over quantity absolutely every time. And I'll
Well,
take
remember the saying, success happens gradually, then suddenly.
Yes, yes. And you're at your suddenly now. So I'd have to say, could I leave the last word with you at this interview? Is there something you'd like to say to the industry, particularly hairdressing, although, you know, we focus on beauty and nails and barbering, but to the hairdressing industry, what would your parting comment be that we're coming out of very tough times? And, you know, we don't know what is ahead, but what one thing could everyone really look forward to in 22? And what would you recommend they did to whatever line they're in? How could they move on from this COVID stuff and look forward? Over to you, sir.
I think, it's been tough for everyone for what will end up being 2 years shortly. And I think going back to basics,
Agreed.
We all like to think there's a silver bullet that's going to come and do it for us. But going back to basics, there are basic principles and procedures that we know work. If we put the effort in, we know that will take us to success. And I think the one thing I'd like to look forward to also is having piles of face masks that we can set fire to as a national celebration. Yes,
I agree. I also, I do worry that if it's done too quickly, then, it's a different way of thinking, but I just wish he'd listen to scientists. That's all I'd say. I know we may not agree there, but...
Well, I think the problem is that the scientists don't agree.
Oh, yes.
So which ones do we
if we take them from the NHS, I don't know. All I can say is, look, a bit of management, a bit of leadership. I happen to think I'm a reasonably good leader. I've, led some of the largest salons in the world, and I've gotten very decent results, and my staff retention rates have been high. So I know that as a leader, there is some sort of consistency required. Trust has to be there. And that I think we're slowly eroding. And so it's going to be a hard job, made harder. But
I think it is, but I'm optimistic for this year. I see that we are on the way out.
For sure.
That is the case. And in terms of leadership, I think country-wise, it's been such a difficult problem. I don't think anyone could get any of it 100% right. No. I think we have to trust as much as we can, but most of all, do our own research and trust ourselves.
With that, I shall leave you, Michael, and say thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.